is up, App Nation? It is Steve P. Young, founder of appmasters.com. Welcome to our weekly Friday live streams where we break down what's really working in the app space to help you grow your downloads and, more importantly, those revenues. And a part of those revenues, if you really start to pull back the layers, you're going to find retention. How do you get users to use your app so that they're more likely to pay? And we're going to talk all about gamification from our guest today, Chou. He's written a book all about gamification. So if you literally put in Amazon gamification book, you'll find his book up there, and he's going to break down his framework to use gamification so that you can get your users to do what you want them to do. So without further ado, let's bring in Chou. Welcome to the show. I see you're smiling while that intro was going, Chou. You like that, right?
Yeah, but I was also smiling because I thought I would have my hello at that moment, and then then I said hello, and the music started playing, so I thought that was funny.
Okay, my fault. We should tell you that there's a video that intros you, and then you get to jump in. But welcome to the show, my friend.
No, it's good. It makes everyone a little happier. Because I did something silly and I enjoyed it. So.
Well, it is called, let's see if I can get this right. Octalysgroup.com. How did I do? Octalysgroup.com?
Pretty good, but the perfect way to say it is Octalysis, like you would say
Octalysis.
like analysis, but Octalysis, like octagon analysis.
Okay. Octalysisgroup.com. You were at the Revenue Cat event that I spoke at as well, and you had a great, phenomenal presentation. That's why I reached out to you, and please share what you shared with our broader audience as well. So how did you get started in this space,
Yeah, so it actually started in 2003, so 21 years ago now, where I was a really heavy gamer, played a lot of Diablo 2 at the time, and I spent over 1,000 hours making my in-game characters amazing, strong, better gear, and all that stuff. And then at one point, my friends started to quit and play a different game. And so I quit too. And I was in that transitional period between quitting game and starting a new game. So then I just felt really, really empty. I was like, wow, all my characters are strong, but I'm still the same loser in the real world. So I thought, would it be great if there are games that you could play that the more hours you spend on it, the better your real life is. Like you'd make more money, you'd be healthier, you get closer to your relationship. And then I thought about, and why are things that are important in the real world so dull and boring? And can we learn from the addictive, fun, exciting things in games and apply it to the real world? So that started in 2003. And I started my first company in 2004. And then in 2012, I published this thing called the Octalysis Framework, which is what you're seeing in front of you.
Nice. Where did it all okay, so when you had this premise, because I think a lot of people have in any business, you have this premise, hey, why can't things be just as good in the real life it is on games? What was the next step that you took when you had this sort of aha moment?
The next step is actually documented in my upcoming second book, 10,000 Hours of Play, which is how do you turn your life into a game? Like it's a 6-step process, like figuring out what is the game you're playing the game, right? What do you care about? What do you want to do? And then step 2 is knowing your attribute. What are your strengths and weaknesses? So, even though you picked a game, doesn't mean you should play every possible role, right? You can play in the game, you can play a tank or a DPS, a damage dealer or a healer. In the real world, like if you want to solve the, let's say sustainability, environmental issues, based on your attributes, maybe you have quantitative skills or persuasive skills, and those would lead to step 3, different roles. Yep, that's my upcoming second book. Mm-hmm. And so let's say you're playing the game of improving the environment. If you have quantitative skills, you can be an engineer as your role. You can think about inventing clean energy devices, right? But if you have persuasive skills and communication skills, you potentially could become a diplomat and negotiate international treaties that are environmental friendly. So it could be the exact same game, but based on your talents and attributes, you would choose a role. And then after that is growing yourself, figuring out what are the skills you need to learn to become the strongest character on your server, which is the Earth server, basically. And then who are the allies you need to make So people who are playing a similar game to you, but they have complementary skills, they chose different roles, and then finalists do these quests. So 2003, like I said, I went through these steps. It was not as defined as right now, but like it's like, okay, my life is a game. How do I do this? And then later on, I published my first book, which was more about a framework to gamify an environment for anything.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to break down that framework too. Man, I am a great multitasker. This is all right. Let's get into this framework a bit. And you start with epic meaning.
Yeah. I'll first give a little background of first, like, because you're talking about origin stories. So again, 2003 was when I started gamifying my life. And then 2012 was when I stepped down as a CEO of a startup called Reward Me. Someone else took over, and I was just figuring out, okay, how do I crystallize all the things I've learned through those years into something that's actionable, whatnot. So I published this thing, Octalysis Framework. Again, it's the word octagon and analysis on my blog, yukaixia.com. And the goal was that I wanted to study what made things engaging and motivating. And at the time, there were people talking about the concept of gamification, but I saw most people just decide to slap on points badges on leaderboards and thought that was interesting. And to a greater extent, these fancy terms we call game mechanics or game design techniques, like, Easter eggs, leveling up, power-ups, right? And that didn't make any sense to me because, if you look into the gaming industry, every game has these game elements, but most games are still not successful. They're not fun. And so it's naive to think that if we just take these elements that are found in boring games and put into my app, my product, my training process, it becomes fun, exciting. So I did a deep study on what exactly makes a game interesting, exciting, and motivating. And so it turned out that it's not because of the graphics, because sometimes ugly games are successful and beautiful games are failures. It's not because some games have game elements and some don't, because there's like a lot of games are copycats, right? Clones, but one is successful, one's not. And at the end of the day, I realized all the successful games have now what I call the 8 core drives of human motivation. And so in the graphic you were showing earlier, inside there is the 8 core drive that motivate all our behaviors. And outside, there's an example list, not exhaustive list, of a variety of game design techniques that can bring out these 8 core drives. So again, like, what we see, status, points, badges, but we also have visual storytelling or a group quest or Easter egg. And so generally speaking, this is a busy chart. So usually at the beginning, we focus on the center. And what's unique about these 8 core drives is everything we do in this world is based on one or more of these 8 core drives, which means that if you have none of these 8 core drives, there's zero motivation, no behavior happens. So each and one of you who are listening and watching the show is here because of at least one of these 8 core drives. So some people are here because of just core drive 7, unpredictability and curiosity. Hey, you're just curious, what is this thing about? Let me check it out. Some people are here because of core drive 5, social influence and relatedness. A friend told you about it, a colleague invited you. I imagine many people are here because of core drive 2, development accomplishment. Hey, I actually want to improve my skills, level up, and take my work to the next level. Occasionally, we have people in the room that's motivated by core drive 1, epic meaning and calling, which is, hey, I really think this can change the world, and it's where the future is at. I want to be part of it. When I travel to different countries and do these keynote speeches, there's core drive 6, scarcity and impatience, which is, this speaker only comes to my country like once a year, once every 5 years. So I better reprioritize my schedule to show up. And when I do, private company workshops, a lot of people are there probably just because of core drive 8, loss and avoidance. Like, I don't want to get fired, so I show up. And hopefully that's not any of you here, because very voluntary. But the key thing is that without these 8 core drives, none of you would be here. Your users are not using your app. Your customers are not buying. Your coworkers not working. Nothing happens. Even the will to eat and stay alive is based on these 8 core drives. So without these 8 core drives, you don't even eat. You starve to death. So one of the quick ways to use the framework is to just think, all right, what is the behavior we want people to do? We want people to download our app, come on, return on day 2, return on day 5, invite their friends, and then think about what among these 8 core drives motivate that behavior. And then if there's none, again, they just drop out. And then it's about brainstorming. How can you add these things like epic meaning and calling, social influence, relatedness into it? Now, we can go through each of them in slightly more detail, but the reason why they're graphed on an 8 core drive is also very significant. There's different natures of those core drives, The top 3 core drives, those are what we call white hat motivation core drives. It makes people feel powerful, in control, they feel good, but there's no sense of urgency. So people procrastinate because they feel fully in control. The bottom ones are what we call black hat motivation core drives, and they make people feel powerful. They make people urgent, obsessed, even addicted. But it could also lead a bad taste in people's mouths because in the long run, they feel like they're not in control of their own behavior, and they could burn out and drop out. And so white hat motivation is usually good for long-term things like community management, loyalty programs, creative workplaces. Black hat motivation is good for one-time transactions. You just want people to give you money, give you your credit card, donate, or download an app, or a short burst of activity. Like Booking.com is one of our clients before, and they want the one-time transaction to buy a ticket, right? So they use a lot of black hat motivation techniques, such as, hey, there's only 2 tickets left. There's 20 people looking at this ticket right now. You only have 10 seconds before it will run out, and you just got to rush in and buy. So you bought the app, or you bought the ticket, and Booking.com made money, but you don't necessarily feel great about it because you feel like you're rushed into it. And so this strategy only works for short, low frequency transactions. Like if you were Amazon, you want people to buy 10 times a day, people burn out and they don't come back. But Booking.com, because it's like every 3 to 5 months you buy a ticket, it works again and again. So that's something to consider. White hat motivation are things we want to do on a day-to-day basis. If we do it, we feel happy. Black hat motivation are things what we actually do. Loss and avoidance. There's a deadline coming, scarcity, an exclusive opportunity, unpredictability, like what's on Instagram or Game of Thrones and whatnot. So then those are the top and bottom, but there's also the left and right. The left side, we call them left brain core drives. And I always have to make the disclaimer, it's not necessarily geographically on the left side of the brain versus the right, but it's symbolic. It represents our logical brain versus the right brain core drive representing the emotional brain. And because, I want it to be a design tool, I think it's more actionable left side, left brain, right side, right brain. I like that structure. But the actionable thing is that the left brain core drives deal with extrinsic motivation, things you do for a reward, a purpose, or a goal, but you don't necessarily enjoy the activity itself. So once you obtain the reward, you hit your goals, or you get used to the reward, it becomes stale, you stop doing that behavior. Whereas the right brain core drives deal with intrinsic motivation, where you're doing something just because you enjoy doing it. Like you enjoyed so much that you're even willing to pay money to experience it. And even if you lost all your progress the next day, you lost your points, your badges, your NFTs, your titles, your certificates, your diplomas, you would still do the activity today, because that's how we measure our quality of lives, how much time we just spend on things we're doing. So the Octalysis framework, it doesn't just help people figure out how to drive behavior and motivation. It also understands the nature of the motivation. Do you want long-term? You want a short-term? You want intrinsic, extrinsic? And here's a really interesting example, like the right bottom, right? That's unpredictability and curiosity. So it's right side, right brain, intrinsic, our brain enjoys it, but it's black hat, we feel out of control. By the way, we feel out of control because these are survival instincts. So we feel we're hardwired to respond to environments that way. And so this is like, you want to go to bed at 10 p.m., but then you binge watch Netflix till 3 a.m, right? It's right brain, you enjoyed it, but you felt out of control. And that also falls into like gambling addiction or whatnot. So yeah, like what's really nice about the framework, and I was just lucky that it turned out so well, is that even the corners would represent, both sides, like black hat, left brain, or white hat, left brain, right brain, whatever. And it will have both qualities. And so you can use that to decide how you're going to design for motivation and experience in getting people to use your app and subscribe to your services, all that stuff. So that's Octalysis in a nutshell.
Yeah, I love it. I want to talk about a real life example that you mentioned. I forgot I muted myself, but I love what you first mentioned. It's like people think, and I deal with clients all the time too, you guys, where they're like, hey, let's just do a leaderboard, or let's just gamify it by badges. And they don't really think through. And I love this fucking framework. Like they don't think through why they're doing it. And they're just like, I saw it done. Let me just do it on my app. Do you see that often? I'm assuming.
Yeah, all the time. And just for the one example you're throwing at me, right? So the leaderboards, when they think about that, they're thinking about core drive to develop an accomplishment, right? Hey, people feel accomplished, so they want to use it more. But obviously for leaderboard, only the top percentile, the top winners, sometimes just top 10, they feel accomplished. Everyone else feels like mediocre or like a loser, right? So if you're using the app and you've been using it for, let's say, 40 minutes and you feel quite good, you have 200 points, right? And you're like, yeah, this is cool. I have momentum. I'm awesome. And then you look at the leaderboard and number 10 has 200 million points, right? That doesn't motivate you at all, right? You're just like, okay, what's the point? And you just leave, right? And so that's why when you design for leaderboards, number one, some people do want to create something where it's like just a very competitive people, like try to meet each other and try to outdo each other. But then the mid to bottom, you need different type of mechanics to motivate them. But also you want to have a lot of what we call micro leaderboards. Like it's like, hey, who's top 10 for today, this week, or on this one activity among the bronze members, right? So as long as you're working hard today, you could be at least number 3 at something just for today among the bronze losers, right? And so, but at least you're number 3, so that gives you an opportunity to take a screenshot, like, yeah, check it out, and share it on social media. You actually feel accomplished. So that's why it's important to know that the key way to think about this is whether you have the core drive or not the game technique. Because you have a leaderboard, you can demotivate people. You don't have accomplishment. But if you design it well, then you're making people accomplished. Same with badges, right? Badges is supposed to make people feel accomplished, but if you give people a badge for every silly thing they do, then it's just an icon. It doesn't mean anything. It's like competing at a chess tournament, getting first place and having a trophy with your name on it, versus just walking to the store and buying a trophy and writing your name on it, right? It's the same symbol, but one is something you're proud of. The other one is just not that great. And so you can have badges without people feeling accomplished. You can have these social buttons and features without people feeling socially connected and appreciated. So that's why I never ask my client, do you have badges, right? I ask, do you make your users feel accomplished?
I like that. Yukai Chou, I'm a huge fan. Eamon says, I'm a huge fan of your work and book. Congrats and sincere thank you. So you got some fans in there.
Appreciate the kind words
as well.
Always really nice to go into someone else's podcast, someone else's show. It's like, hey, you got my people who like my work here too.
Yes, sir. I love it too. Hey, the other thing I want to move on to is a real life example. Well, here, Yukai, I wonder if you're okay with this. I'm going to gauge your facial expression, okay? How did you use with the new, I'm going to tie it in with the book that you're about to release. And so how did you tie this framework into the book that you're about to release? Like, what did you think about? Like, how do I get people to read it? How do I get people to share it? How did you use this framework in your own real life book, upcoming book as well, which we have right here? This is 10 hours. It's called 10 Hours to Play, right?
Yeah. 10,000 Hours to Play is my second book. I'll first talk about what gamified techniques I use in my first book that worked really well. The second book, there are still some things that are a bit hidden. I think people want to discover that on their own. But in my first book, so I would go through each of these core drive as a chapter, and I would say, hey, here's some examples of these game design techniques, right? Again, same thing like group quest, leaderboards, appointment dynamics. But I would have a number for the game design technique. So it's like, hey, number 37 is this, and this is what it means, is how I use it in life. And then it's like, okay, this is number 12, this is number 48, right? And so if I didn't do it, people would just, go through 5-8 examples. Like, okay, great, I learned this next, I've learned this next. But when I have a number and they're not in the right order, people start to realize, oh, wait a second, this is a collection set. And it's like jumping around. So then people start pulling out spreadsheets and they're like, okay, number 1 is this, number 2 is this, I'm missing number 3, number 4. And it's like, wow, the highest number is like 98, but the whole book only has like 60 of these things. Like that means I'm missing like 38. And that's when they start going on a hunt online. They start watching more of my videos and go to, my yukaichou.com website. And so they're just hunting for them. So I get a lot of emails. People say, hey, where can I find the whole list? Where can I find the whole list? And I'm like, hey, honestly, I don't give that up because it truly ruins the hunt. Sometimes I hire people, and because I hired them, they're doing work for my clients. They do have access to the whole list. And then they like all the time they said, oh, I'm actually really disappointed. When I see the whole thing, I realize the game is over. Yeah. So, and also when you see the whole thing, you'll look at like my experience, you'll look at 2 or 3 and like, yay, great. And then you just never come back anymore. You bookmark it. But when you finally find one in the wild, you're really excited, you absorb it, you remember it, and you think about how to use it. So it also has education value. So that was a really strong gamification design in my first book. And the interesting thing is, again, the only thing the numbers showed people was scarcity. Like, you don't have all of them, right? If I didn't have the numbers, they just think they have all of them. It didn't matter. So that's core drive, like on the left bottom, right? So it's extrinsic, black hat. It's extrinsic, meaning that it's more of a goal oriented thing. You want something outside of yourself, and it's black hat. It pulls you in. Whereas again, white hat would be accomplishment, right? You feel like you're in full control, you're leveling up. This one is like, okay, where's the next one? Where's the next one? I need to go find it. Of course, there's all curiosity and social influence, all that stuff. But so that's what did really well in the first book, alongside many other things. There are some simpler things that I think every author could utilize, which is at the end of each chapter, instead of saying, a lot of them will say, hey, here's an exercise to do. I give them some core drive 3, empowerment of creative feedback, giving people meaningful choice, and our brains like to choose between which one, not yes or no. You should also do that when you're telling people to sign contracts or getting people to do. It's like, instead of saying, yeah, work with me or not, like, which package do you want? That would be a bit better. So I would say, hey, I would tell people, like, just choose one. Of course, they can choose more if they want, but I said, just choose one, easy, medium, or hard. And so people are, all right, let me engage. Like which one, and once you made the choice, like, oh, I'm going to do medium, then they're more committed to actually doing it, because a lot of people skip these exercises. Also, in the beginning of my chapters, they could only choose between like easy medium, like easy medium, and then easy medium, and then later on in the book it unlocks hard. Like, hard becomes an option, so people also feel like they've unlocked something, like they can now challenge the hard question if they want. So yeah, so that works well. Again, for the new book, we're gonna apply some of these techniques, but we're gonna also apply. We'll have a similar theme to the game design techniques. We call those real life game skills, which are skills you use in the real world to get ahead of everyone else. Like, war cry, which is what Elon Musk, Steve Jobs does, which is like motivating people around you to do more than they thought they could. There's like heroic strike, which is doing an action of audacity that surprise people, but then they respect you for it. There's the power leap, which is flying to a location to meet someone, even when they didn't agree, but since you already flew there, they might as well meet with you. Those are warrior skills. But then we have druid skills, which has mind soothe, which is like calming people down, having that empathy. And yeah, so there's a variety of this really cool real life game skills that attach to a story about how very successful use it to turn their business around. One of my favorite is terraforming. So in a game, terraforming is like some crazy magic where you like do earthquakes and mountains come up, right? In the real world, terraforming is like changing the policies of an environment. So we have the person who was leading PayPal back in the day, and PayPal was non-compliant as a bank. So he talked to policymakers and changed the rules and laws so PayPal would be compliant. And then, later became the CEO of Square, and he had to do the same thing again because it's a different category in a different company in an old category. So you're just the skill to change your environment to be successful. So we're going to have a lot of these. They all have different classes. So some are paladin skills, and I think a lot of people will be really excited about that.
I like it. Were you to your parents like, hey, Mom, Dad, this paid off. Me playing all these hours of video games, it has paid off. Look at how well it's paid off.
No, this is actually pretty funny because my parents, my father's a diplomat. Okay, my mother's a teacher. They work for the Taiwanese government, and they're very conservative. So they've always felt like I should just be finding a job. Okay, so I said, hey, look, I'm doing all this stuff. It's really cool, and like, stop fooling around, go find a real job. And then I would run startups for a few years, and I say, hey, look, I got invited to be a lecturer at Stanford University. I got invited to do a speech at Google, and I was on the newspaper. And they said, go out. Yeah, well, not yet. And then they was like, okay, did they pay you? I'm like, oh no, I just did it for like credibility and sharing information. And they're like, stop fooling around, go find a real job. And it was only until the time, I think I was maybe like 28, when I started making more money than my dad. That's when they're like, Oh yeah, we were always really supportive of this, and of course it worked out great.
Well, now as a parent, you guys, I'm always like, I want to encourage this, but then how do I make sure I find the right balance between getting too addicted to video games and try to make something out of it too? You have any suggestions on that, just out of curiosity?
I think the most important thing is make every minute count. Like learn as much as you can and apply it.
Mm,
Because if you read my book, a lot of the examples I use in coming up with the framework is that, hey, first of all, the games I play, like Diablo 2, like StarCraft, even like Farmville, Candy Crush. And then I talked about how, for instance, Wikipedia applies core drive 1 epic meaning calling, and then eBay applies core drive to development accomplishment. So technically, everyone in the world who has played the games I played and used eBay and Wikipedia, they could have come up with the Octalysis framework and wrote the book, right? But I think it goes back to 10,000 hours of play. We'll call it 10K HP. 10K HP step 2, attributes. I had the attribute to observe my experience and be self-aware and understand, okay, why did I do this? What was motivating me? And I came up with that framework that now if you go to Google Scholar, you'll see more than 3,000 PhD thesis academic journals referencing my framework. So I was observant of that, right? And I think so that's number one. Make sure all the time you spend, you're learning something. Case in point, I actually skipped out on World of Warcraft all through my younger years because I see my friends playing it. I know I'm going to be super addicted to it. And then it finally got to a point where everyone got old enough where I had clients who grew up with World of Warcraft, okay, like a CEO of some big crypto company, and they're using terms from World of Warcraft like soulbound, which is now the main language in Ethereum and all that stuff. So I'm like, okay, I gotta play the game, I gotta learn it. And then literally like 1,000 hours went by when I started playing World of Warcraft and more. But I didn't make that go to waste because I immediately applied 2 or 3 strategies and I learned from that to the clients I were working with. And so, I just kept leveling up. So I think number one is that. Number two, it's good to recognize that you are the ultimate player in the ultimate game, like in the real world. Like when you are playing a video game, you're leveling up a character, but your main character, which is yourself, is stagnant, right? Imagine if you played a video game where every time you walk by a computer, you're just stuck for 3 hours. Like you can't move this character anymore. You're going to be so frustrated. Like, no, leave this computer. Let's go out and kill monsters and level up, right? Build allies, do quests, right? So when we're addicted to games, it literally is that. Like we walk by a television, we walk by a computer, and then we're just there sitting there doing nothing, not leveling up. So it's important to remember that. And so the whole point is it's not about trying to be disciplined and like I have to do these things I don't like. It's really changing mentality to think this is actually fun. This is actually building a character, and there's so many builds possible. There's so many skills to learn, so many quests to do, and start seeing that in the right perspective. And even when we face challenges, I talk a lot about like if you played a game and you just keep going forward, and you beat the game, that's a super boring game, right? No one wants to play that. So the game has to artificially add in enemies, frustration, pits, and things that kill you, right? To give you a challenge so you can learn. And people want that. But in the real world, when people face obstacles and opposition, they're like, oh, why does my life suck so much? I feel so bad. So, but when you look at a game, the same thing, every enemy and opposition is a opportunity to get more points, right? Level up and become awesome. Right. So that same mentality, I think just even that one mentality out of like 300 possible things you can learn from this and applying to your life, I think your life changes altogether. Like now you favor opposition and you focus on your growth.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that personally took me a while to learn was competition. Being like kind of what you talked about with leaderboards. There was another app marketing agency that wrote a blog post and I was like, holy cow. And they had made like 2 million in their first like 14 months or whatever it was. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm not even close to that. Like I felt like really crappy about myself, Yukai. And then as I'm looking back on this, so 2 years later, fast forward a little bit, that agency is no longer around. And, they had their own issues and, but I don't know the details of it, but I also felt like, well, enduring is possible. Like, did I take a lesson out of this? And my main lesson was, I don't focus on the competitors. I don't care what you are doing. I'm happy for you and I'm glad, but I'm also not going to focus my feelings and my self-worth based off of your numbers and your leaderboard. Because ultimately, if we look back at the last 10 years, I'm now winning and you've now lost. But if you looked at it in that moment in time, I was losing. But, you know, just endure. That's what I've learned from business. Just endure.
And this is common for people playing games. Like, we talked about World of Warcraft. When you sign up to a game like World of Warcraft, you're level 1. You'll look at, and you have like the most basic gear ever, and then you finish a quest, and the person gives you like some dirty socks as your reward, because you don't have socks. And so, but then you look at other players, they're like, wow, level 35, level 40, and they have amazing looking gear, and they're riding like a dragon or something, and you're like, wow. Like, most of the time, you're not like, oh, I feel bad about myself, I don't want to play this game anymore, right? It actually makes you excited, like, hey, I could be like that one day. And you work harder, and then I said level 35, and that's actually not so high, actually. So you could actually go way past level 35, and then maybe that level 35 player, they stopped playing, or they weren't as competitive. So it's just, like I said, just focus on your own growth. Plus, a lot of times these people are playing different roles in their game. They're doing a different game, and they're playing different roles in the game. So it's almost like, hey, you are a healer, and you're like upset that someone else is doing more damage than you. It's like, well, you're just playing a different role, right? So focus on how to be your best self. I think that's the best thing, to just even enjoy life, become successful, but also enjoy life while getting. That's why it's called 10,000 hours of play. It's not 10,000 hours of blood, sweat, and tears. It's 10,000 hours of enjoyment and play, and after that, you become successful.
Yeah, no, I love it, and you said it perfectly. I couldn't have said it any better. Like, we were different roles, and we were on different missions too. Like, my mission was just to have a business that supported my lifestyle and be with my family, and I was living that. But yet, when I looked at the mission of somebody else, kind of like you said it best, it's like, I'm a healer, but he's doing more damage, and I'm getting jealous that he's doing more damage. But like, but I'm the healer. You know what I mean? Like, why am I basing my mission off of somebody else's, or my role off of somebody else's role? So I love that, dude. That's why I pulled this up when you were talking, and you
it's perfect. And that's a perfect example. And like, you have more sustaining power than he did. So
yeah. And look, he had his own stuff. So if he's listening to this, I'm just saying, I'm not throwing shade. That's all I'm trying to say.
You're always playing different games. So
Hey, Yukai, one thing I want to ask you too was, like, obviously, do you feel like I feel like there needs to be a combination of all these in one to find success? Or do you feel like, hey, like one or two is fine? Like, well, how do you look at this chart, and do you pick out two of your favorites? Yeah.
You only need one strong core drive to drive behavior. And it's almost impossible to have all 8 at the same time, right? It could come in different sequences, but at the same time, it's very, very hard. Like, if you have like perfect design, maybe. And so I would usually recommend in one time, think about the top 2 or 3 core drives that you want to design, and then factor in your target audience. Like, what core drive motivate them more? Are they people who like to collaborate, or they're like driven by higher themes, changing the world? Or are they just like random lazy people who only do things because they want to avoid a loss, and they just do what their friends are doing? That's 5 and 8, by the way. And so pick the 2 or 3 that is the strongest, and just go down that path. And then you think about, all right, also, let's say if it's like branding, it should be more white hat. It's inspiring. People want to work with you. But then, there's no urgency, so they never actually buy your product. But then your sales and conversion pages should be black hat. So there's urgency, right? Hey, there's an offer that ends in 2 hours and whatnot. So then they sign up. And then onboarding should go back to white hat, because then it's like, hey, you just made the great choice. These are your friends here that are enjoying it, and the world, we're donating, we're planting trees because you signed up, all that. You made the smartest choice, right? And then scaffolding, anything goes, depending on what experience you're doing. And then the end game is back to white hat, because the end game, which is how to keep people on for 5 years, 10 years, that's all long lasting. Now, some companies use core drive 8 loss and avoidance to keep you around. Like, hey, if you leave, you're gonna lose all your data on our site, and we don't even allow you, or you have to pay like $15,000 to take your data away, or something. Like, obviously nowadays there's regulation that says no, people have the right to ask for their data, but it doesn't even plug in nicely with another company potential, or even like, let's say, navigation app, right? People don't think about it. If you switch navigation apps, all your saved addresses are not there anymore in your next one, right? So that's sunk cost, right? Loss and avoidance. But if that's the only reason why people are not leaving your app, then they obviously feel bad about it, right? And so at one point, they're either miserable or they do burn out and they leave.
Yeah, I love it, man. Okay. Anything else you want to cover before we move on to the dad jokes and the app audit on this? Like any real life examples that come to mind while applying this framework?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch. Like we on our website, we're allowed to show like I think 15 case studies that have like numbers because most clients they want confidentiality. Some we can't even say we work with them, and some we say we can work with them, but not on what, not details, not numbers. So over the years, we've collected a variety of case studies that we can actually show, and so there's a lot of loyalty program, but there's, for instance, some one thing that I see very often these days is there's some kind of app that has some reward economy, especially if it's tied to some kind of cryptocurrency tokenomics. And I'll say for all these type of programs, the biggest thing is that the economy sucks. Like at the beginning, people's like, wow, I just browse the mobile app or use the internet or do whatever I was doing, and I get points and I can get rewards, right? And that's extrinsic motivation, left brain.
Mm-hmm.
And so the concept of it makes people want to sign up. But then over time, they realize, wow, after a whole month of activities, I got paid like $3. And they're like, wow, each action is worth less than a cent. Like, and you feel really, really bad about it. And you just don't want to use it anymore. So that oftentimes, if the economy doesn't work out very well, so then there's a variety of ways to use those 8 core drives. So for instance, for an app called Full Dive, which is a mobile browser, like Safari or Google on your phone. They actually, so what we did quite a few things, but one of the things at Core Drive 1 Epic Meaning and Calling to the picture. So it's like, hey, instead of getting a $5 gift card, you could donate it so 20 kids don't have to starve tonight. And they're like, wow, that's so impactful. Like in their minds, like, wow, 20 kids would have died from starvation if I didn't use this app. So I should use this app even more, right? And I think I have a quote with the CEO, but talked about their app rating. I think went from 3.8 to 4.6 or something like that, 4.7, and downloads went from 600K to 2.2 million. I have to find that precise quote though. So, and then their weekly retention rate went from, I think it was more than double. So it's like from like 6% to 18, like 15%. I forgot. I think it ended up being 24%. So they were pretty happy with that. But then, so that's one example, just add Epic Meaning Calling. Then there's other things where you have collection set designs where every time they do things, they don't necessarily get the reward, but they get a piece of it. So when they collect all of it, they get a bigger reward, right? And so now it's easy to control your economy because you're pacing the schedule, but people still feel rewarded every step of the way. Like, yeah, I got this piece, I got progress, great. That's development accomplishment as well as ownership, Core Drive 2 and 4. But then obviously if they don't complete it, you don't have to give them the full reward, helps you control the economy. And if they do it, that means they've done enough actions where it's warranted. You can add unpredictability to it. So that ties into the mystery box, Easter eggs, the lottery designs. You have those things where it's like, hey, there's no promise of getting the reward, but you could get a free iPad or whatever. And so as long as you're getting more raffle tickets and the chances are increasing, people also are engaged in that. So again, and you can make it social too, right? It's like, well, you can use it for one point, or you can donate it to other friends, and it will be 3 points instead. So now you're incentivized to actually invite your friends to it. So yeah, so just by thinking through those 8 core drives and adding more variety to like a strict fixed action reward structure, like a very linear kind of thing, you immediately make something more engaging and potentially more sustainable too.
I love it. I'm already thinking about certain things too, but I really love the way you put it all together. And I love that there's a white hat version and a black hat version too. You guys love it.
Yeah. Oh, and I just found the quote. It was, so the app rating went from 4.1 to 4.7 stars. Downloads went up from 600K to 2.7 million. And weekly retention increased from 12% to 29%.
Wow.
Yeah. Since this is recorded, I don't want to just throw out numbers. I wanted to be a little more precise.
Yeah. Congratulations, bro. That's awesome. All right. Yeah. You guys got any questions? Put them in the comments. I should have said that from the very beginning. Luis, thank you for being here. Ollie's here as well. Nurex, I know you missed it. The recording's up. We have an academy and a group, a community, and Nurex is in there. Sorry, you did that. All right. Okay.
Yeah, those just went by really fast, so I couldn't really.
No, it's all good, man. It's you're the main star of this. BN says you talked about a sales page being black hat and onboarding being white hat. When do you recommend showing a paywall in the app? A lot of apps will start onboarding and collect user info before showing the app. Got cut off.
Yeah, I really think it depends on the product itself, because the ideal scenario is that your product is actually so compelling that their next step, wow, great, and they build up desire, right? They build up desire, and then when there's like, okay, I really want this, then it's like, okay, stop. You got to pay us to do more of what you already know is amazing, right? So the great products, especially this is like with the freemium stuff, right? They let you use it, and then you have to proactively upgrade. And so if you want more features, if you're like, I want to go from 2 users to 5 users, whatever, right? So that's ideal scenario. But unfortunately, a lot of apps out there, if they got to try it, they won't want to pay anymore. So with those, you try to pick them up when they're the most curious, which is Core Drive 7. You just sell the dream, basically. You're like, we will solve all your problems. This is the best proven methodology, blah, blah, blah. But you got to subscribe to start using it. And here, look at all the social proof, all the people who say this, they've used it. It's amazing. And even better, if you sign up for a whole year, it's only going to be like 5 months worth of subscriptions. So sign up for year one, like 1 year already. So obviously not the best, and both from a business practice ethics and scenario, like obviously, because if people just sign up for 1 month, they're just going to drop out a month, so you better get them for a whole year. But yeah, but because of that, and the question for some apps, pushing it early, like selling the value proposition, adding social proof, and just saying paywall, like if you want to see the actual magic behind what we're talking about, all the promises and the core drive triggers, pay us, and then you'll see it. And then after they paid you, then it's like, at least you made some money, and then the rest is how well you can retain them, all that stuff. But if you're very confident that the moment they use it, they touch it, they're going to fall in love with it, they can't see their lives without it, it's so much utility, so much enjoyment, then obviously get them to taste it, experience it, and then say, stop, if you want more of it, pay us.
Yep. You guys said it best. Look, the BN, we saw an app. We worked with one of our clients. We worked with them. They did not have their paywall during the onboarding, which is a best practice, but they were exactly what you guys said. They were confident in the outcome of that experience, and they gave you free limited access. So you had to do like 8 different things in the app. It's an AI app, so you got to use it 8 different times and see the outcome. And then they were pretty successful before they even started working with us. And then just adding the paywall did help out. But then you also have to look at, okay, now that more people are activating a trial, you're also going to get more people canceling a trial because you're so upfront. You're gonna have to play around with those numbers. But if you are confident, you could also wait. Like everything works. You just got to find the path that works for you too.
Yeah, and every product is different, so I can't say like you should do this or these are the numbers you would look at. But here's an example about in a sense payroll, like in terms of black hat motivation, right? You've probably been on some blog in the past, and then you read the article and then you have something to say and you start writing a comment, right? And it's like the best comment you've ever written in your life. You poured your heart out, right? And then you click post comment. So there's two black hat ways to one more black hat than the other. So the lesser one is Core Drive 6 scarcity and patience, right? It'll give you a message, hey, in order to post this comment, you need to subscribe, right? I mean, the lesser one is you click I want to comment, and it says, hey, you need to be a subscriber before you can comment, right? And that's people's like, oh, but I really want to comment, so let me do it, and they sign up. Or I was like, it's too much work to go on. But then when they already written everything, and then you said, hey, and sometimes it's worse. Sometimes you click post this comment, the page refreshes to the next page, and it says you cannot comment because you're not a subscriber. And then like, oh crap, did I lose my message? You go back and try to copy this time in case you lost all your work. Yeah. And that's like, there's the loss in voice, some cost. Like I already wrote all this stuff. All right, fine, I'll give you an email and my password. You create a password and whatnot, right? So these are very compelling in making you take the action, like a burst of one-time transaction act type of thing. but it doesn't make you feel good. So that's why you need a balance between. Now, if they make you do this for Black Hat, right? But then a day later or 5 hours later, the author of the post replied as a, hey, thanks for posting this. Actually really, really thoughtful. It made me rethink the whole thing. So I really appreciate your comment. They're like, yay, that feels great, right? Core Drive 2, the accomplishment, Core Drive 5, social influence. And you're like, yeah, that was all worth it. That's amazing. So you're no longer upset at the Black Hat that pushed you in because it took you back to the White Hat. That's like your gym trainer yelling at you, calling you weak when you're doing push-ups, right? And you're paying this guy, right? It doesn't feel comfortable at the beginning when you're doing it, but then afterwards, like, yay, it led me back to a feeling of accomplishment. So thank you. Or when you wanted to donate to some nonprofit you never got to, and they said, we have this generous donor who says in the next 2 hours, whatever you donate, they'll match it, right? So there's scarcity. You can only do it in 2 hours. It's a limitation. But then when you do it, you're not upset because the scarcity drove you to Core Drive 1 Epic Meaning and Calling. So so sometimes we want to do things in White Hat, but we don't get to do it. So if there's Black Hat that kicks our butt and pushes us there, then we're actually happy about it. So, so again, this is not about ethical, good or evil. White Hat, Black Hat is literally White Hat, you feel in control, and Black Hat, you feel out of control. And so if we can't motivate ourselves to do something, we use Black Hat techniques on ourselves to push us to doing these things.
Yeah, I love it. You know, I got a Yelp push notification, and I think I wrote it for like a business that I routinely visit, and I was like, hey, I'll help you out, you know, and Yelp sent a push notification saying, hey, your review helped drive. It was a number, Kai. It wasn't like, you know, it's 2,000. It was just like 1,769 more views for this. And I felt great. And I was like, oh my God, like that's awesome. And so not that I've written more reviews, but it reminded me of what you talked about. Like, hey, I wasn't forced to comment, but if Yelp can figure out ways to drive more of that user from me, because I'm more of like, I'll just look at it. I won't leave reviews, but I did feel really good afterwards.
Yeah, so that's a very human-focused kind of thing, not function-focused. You're talking about human-focused design versus function-focused design, where it's like they thought, how do we maximize opportunities for people to feel accomplished, right? It's not even, like, you don't really benefit from this accomplishment, right? But you felt like you did something nice and good for people. So then they send out these triggers to give people Core Drive 2, right? And if they started out like, let's figure out how to solve this problem, they probably wouldn't have thought about this, or let's get performance to be better or whatnot. Function focused, like adding efficient. This is not efficient, but it's motivating.
Yeah, totally. And it's a combination of both. You said it best. Like, hey, start with the White Hat. If you need people to be motivated, move and do an action, go with Black Hat and come back to White Hat so that they feel good and they feel like they're in control, because Black Hat makes the move, but then White Hat needs to make them feel good as well. Yep. All right, this was awesome, you guys. All right, let me get into the app audit side of the show. I like to start off every app audit with some dad jokes. Lower that volume. All right, you guys, you're the guest. We'll play one round. Do you want to go first?
I got two dad jokes now. One, my coworker told me one I came up with by myself, like over the years. But so the first one, I don't know how this goes. I'll just go, I guess.
You go one, and then I'll go, and then we'll have people vote to see who wins.
So I wanted to say that I was really surprised that Einstein was a real person, because I was taught that he was just a theoretical physicist.
I like it. All right. Okay. We're not going to ask questions here. None of the jokes are asking questions. It's not like, what do you call it? No. All right. I just found out that you don't need to be training. You don't need any training to be a garbage man. You just pick it up as you go along. All right. Put S if you thought my joke was better, and then put Y if you thought you guys' joke was better. And then
I just thought about. Oh, sorry, keep going.
No, go for it.
I just thought of another one that was my favorite. Probably still my favorite today. It's like, why did the Scarecrow win an award?
Why?
Because he was outstanding in his field.
I like it. All right, let's get into the app audit side of things, and then we're going to go into, let me lower the volume of this because it's going to get high. The Funnel Fox. All right. It's short and simple. Now, if you want your app audited in future or tear down, roasted, whatever you want to call it, in a future live stream, just go to appmasters.com/audit, appmasters.com/audit. We do have a long list of people, but yeah, we'll get to it. All right. Namit's app is this, Yukai, and then we'll go quickly on this because I know we're running out of time and you probably want to go to sleep. So Namit said, hey, I got a brand new app. Why don't you do this one? What they need help on is their paywall and user experience. So I'll get into the app. It's called AI Meeting Notes, and it's what you would think it is. You record some audio, and then it will run through some AI, transcribe it, and give you the meeting notes and so forth. All right. Anything on the screenshots, Kai, that you want to mention?
Anything what?
On the screenshots or the App Store presence that you want to mention or talk about?
I'm just curious. What do you think makes them unique in their value proposition?
Yeah. All right, Namit, if you're in there,
I'm giving you a chance to sell the sponsor more. So
this one? Oh, the sponsor was Funnel Fox. So Funnel Fox sponsored our channel.
This is an audit.
But these apps are, we're doing this for free, bro.
All right, all right. I was saying like, oh yeah, tell me about why Funnel Fox is so amazing. But anyway, like, all right. So we're just looking at the App Store. I
appreciate that.
All right. We're just looking at the audit for the App Store. Okay.
Yeah. No, well, thank you, Yukai. Well, since you guys brought it up, if you guys want to look, I think web to app campaigns are going to be the future. And so if you guys are interested, check out Funnel Fox and they'll help you build onboarding experiences and tie into the app. And so you can run web to app campaigns more efficiently. And if you don't have a developer to do all these landing pages and stuff, Funnel Fox will do that for you. So it's funnelfox.io, and we'll get into
better than all the other Fox.
Yeah, all the other Foxes.
Yeah.
Foxes, cats,
right.
Capture meetings with ease. Your go-to app for any meeting. I love it. Okay. Now we're with the paywall.
I'll say that. Okay, so I'll say that not coming to the paywall, but the design behind it. Like when you have all this text cramped together in a very big paragraph form, it just feels like, oh, I don't want to read it. I don't want to look at it. Mm-hmm. So, and this is the example where I don't even know why this is better, why it's unique, and it's asking to pay. If you have sold the value proposition really well, like just like my earlier question, like, oh, what differentiates it, right? Then I'm like, okay, there's one feature that I just want. Like, I can tell you, like a video editor, it had contact correction, right? I went for look for that. Then I'll pay. Mm-hmm. But when I see this paywall, a lot of people are like, okay, well, I know as a fact, just like you said, yeah, we've probably seen many other, or it's basically what the name suggests, right? Right? A lot of people say, well, let me go try another free option first before I come back to this one. And usually they never do. So either you've sold something that stands out. I haven't seen what makes this one so unique yet, or you let them taste it, or but I think that's important. Yeah, capture transcribe effortless recording anytime. I like how it has a little bit of social proof, which is the Apple one, but more quotes like, oh, this changed my life. Especially on this type, the paywalls, right? In the paywall, ideally, this is when people are the most scared. Like usually when they get here, they have to click, I want it instead of in their face. Yeah. But even if they said, I want to buy, and then they go to the paywall, or the place we're putting credit, they get scared and sometimes they hesitate. So it's usually good to have some level of social influence and social proof, like a quote that's like, hey, I download this and it changed my life and blah, blah, blah. And then the person behind it, the more specific you are, the more believable it is. If you just say, hey, Joe, happy customer, then they think it's a fake person. But it's like, like Joe, father of 3 in Arizona, and even like a small icon, then they think it's more likely a real person, and then there's believability. So unlimited everything, record, smart summaries, precise. I'd say especially for AI stuff, AI is all about feeling the magic. So I would suggest letting people try it once and say, look, wow, that's amazing, it's magic, and then say pay. And again, just like I said earlier, if your AI sucks and the magic's bad, then obviously you're not. This is the best strategy, right? Just pay us before you can figure out we're bad. But if it was actually pretty good, it gets people to what we call the first major win state. It's like, wow, this is amazing. Then I think it's good to first show them that very quickly and said, now you got a taste, you see what we can do, now pay.
Yeah, I love it too. And I think Namit's here too, but it's free and you can try it for 30 minutes. So I like that. And Wave AI, we had Josh on the podcast a few months ago, but you guys can look it up. And he's taken this app to 2 million ARR as an indie. So, Namit, personally, this is just my personal opinion. I don't want to see indie developer. It's my meeting notes. It's important. I don't need to, I want to know that you're big, not small, in my opinion. And then what you guys said about what is the core feature. We used to use this tool called Fireflies. I really like the action items. So you have a meeting because you're called AI meeting notes taker, but what are the action items that come out of it? And Fireflies did a great job of highlighting that. And I like that feature within Firefly. I was like, hey, here's if you say a certain word, it will say action items for Yukai, action items for Steve, and then move on. So you might want to highlight kind of what Yukai said. What makes you extremely different? Think about that. And you don't have to know about it now. You're like, hey, I want to get into this space. I think it's a good space. For me, it was like, I kind of through the years, I've like, oh, I want to be the most effective, most affordable app marketing agency because I feel like people sell too much fluff. I work with clients that paid huge amounts of money versus, like I'm like, you need all that. Here's all you need, and we can make it grow. And so that came to it. But in the beginning, it was just trying to make a living, frankly. And so, you can kind of figure it out later, but also think about why you built it and what you're seeing. All right, help us grow. All right, I'll give you a review. Ooh, got some promos here. That cat scarcity. All right, awesome. Can record. Amit, hello, Steve Young. How you doing? Thanks for letting me audit this app. Let's see what happens.
I like the message. It is safe to leave the app. Like it.
Yep.
Like the worst is people like they don't know if they should or not, and they're stuck in this limbo. Yeah. So you're creating like negative experiences while they're using it.
Yeah, I like it. See, here's where you can teach me too. Hey, if you say certain things about action items, we'll take you action items. But people might do this. You're like, oh, okay. Well, if I, learn, I can learn along the way too. Okay. I like it, and I like the scarcity. He's using your model, you guys. Scarcity. Look.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah. One thing is also, especially because we know this moment. Like the goal is to have them reach the first major win state. Okay, that's when they first say, "Wow, this is amazing," right? And you want to count how many minutes it takes for people to reach the first major win state, because every second before that you're seeing dropout, right? And so what we saw there is that you actually didn't reach one because you recorded the wrong thing, and some people just leave. So it would be good to say, record something, record a meeting or a conversation with action items or something like that. So that so you would know at least even as a quick test, because most people when they first download, they're just doing a quick test, right? It's not like, oh, we're in this big meeting now, let's download, let's use this. It's like, let's test it. And it's like, okay, I see this. All right, well, we have a good meeting and these are the 3 action items. Then you give them a good summary. And then they're like, wow, this is cool. I like it. As opposed to, there are no action items, so there's nothing we can do. Haha. Right. And so that trigger would be a nice way to drive people to feeling more accomplished.
And this is great. Look, you go back to this frame, because what you guys just said is brilliant. I love it. And you got it for free. Like that was awesome.
Yeah, I hope I'm not stealing your audit program. Like I'm kind of hijacking the whole thing.
We're gonna go to Yukai now. Forget Steve.
Yeah, I was just watching what you're doing, and they're like, "Yukai, what do you think?" And so I have a professional bad habit of commenting more than I should.
No, please don't ever feel like you. This is why I like doing it with somebody else, because I like other people's opinion, right? I don't think I know it all, and I want to hear what others think too. And that was a brilliant point as well. All right, Namit, thanks a lot, Yukai and Steve. See, he even led with you first. See, you're already stealing my audience, Yukai. Okay, we got to get this guy off our channel.
I'm a rogue.
Podcast, Calfish said. All right, we'll get into Galshan's app. Let's get into round 2. All right, and he wants help increasing downloads and retention. So it's a casual game, okay? All right. And downloads wise, look, I don't know if we're going to cover it here, but let's focus on the retention, because downloads wise, I feel like unless you have something, you guys, I feel like, look, Google for Google, think about that. Like you're going to have to, it's a funnel. So if you're relying on ASO, go back, really think through. This is a very crowded category. A lot of apps like this. And so really think through what the keywords should be, but then really also think about like run Google ads, because Google ads for Android apps are pretty cheap to really run. But I don't want to cover the ASO part because we're running out of time as well. But I want to, because you guys here, I want to get into the game. What do you think, you guys? Should we get into the game and just come up with ideas?
If you're short on time, you shouldn't let me talk.
No, no, are you kidding? You're the star, bro. Let me pull it up. All right, here we go. Here's the game, and because it's hyper casual, like we can. Excellent. Oh, phone call.
It's like,
did you hear
a little
that?
bit of Game of Thrones? Yeah, a little bit of Game
Yeah,
of Thrones.
it is a Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones ringtone. All right.
Yeah.
English. Data privacy. You're gonna get me in trouble with copyright.
Trust me, when I hum songs, none of the AI recognize the song I'm hearing. So.
All right. They got me straight into the game. Well, I don't even know what to do here. I'm gonna assume this.
Did you just tap on the flask on the right side?
Oh, okay. No, I tapped on the flask on the left side. I didn't actually know what to do.
Oh, so tapping on that one makes it leave that one. Okay.
Yeah, okay. So you're assuming I know how to play this game.
I think it will just help with the what we call a glowing choice, which is an arrow. Like, do this as your first step, like like tap this, and you tap it. It's like, oh, I get it. Like you just need to tap once to get it, but before you know, there's like 2-3 seconds of feeling confusion and feeling a little stupid, and so it's just good to have that arrow, just like what is it called? Just like Flappy Birds. At least it'll say tap to fly, and then you tap once, and then it jumps, and you fall.
And plus, like, I don't. Just tell me, like, hey, put all the same colors in one tube. That's all you really had to do for me. And now I can figure it out. Now I'm there. Okay. I've gone through 5 different places. You got anything you want to jump in? Say like, hey.
I think it'd be useful to have some kind of progress to show people are progressing towards something like a level up or higher status. So it doesn't feel like you just keep doing the monotonous exercise. You're progressing somewhere.
Yeah. That's what I'm worried about too. I'm like, okay, when does this end? Okay. That's what I was thinking. I was like, whoa, is this just going to be forever?
Yeah.
It might be a good pause break.
Yeah. And you could have a score based on how quickly you solved it.
Right. Oh, I just quit all together. Oh, they have nothing.
Yeah.
I think they have to hit rewind and rewatch all of this stuff, because they don't even have a main page, nothing. It's just a game. And there's no ads. Like, how are you going to make money? You could easily put, I feel like you could put ads down here, and you're Android only. Like, nobody's going to pay you. So
it's a labor of love. I just want people to play.
I guess. Yeah, I'm kind of too. I'm kind of like, okay, I get it, but now I'm sort of doing the same thing. I think the best games kind of delight you and surprise you with something else. And I don't know when it is, but when I think about Color Switch, I've talked to David Reichelt, who made that game, and I saw a similar app, Yukai, called Flight that launched a year before Color Switch. But I'm like, that Color Switch thing, like it's this very subtle thing, but I was like, oh, this is cool. And I think about Uno.
So the demographic here are the people who want to almost like do like a brainless relaxation while they have something more intense going on. So they're not looking for intense gameplay. They're looking for like a therapeutic kind of like using a little bit of creativity and problem solving, but not like, oh, I want to have an epic experience. So for that, usually it's this little sound effect, little special effects. So when it hits something, like a little sound, a little thing that like when the ball hits another ball, and even like based on how many balls are already below it, it'll create a different sound. Right. Like those increase that therapeutic experience, which is again back to player types. Like, who are the people playing? what motivates them, and the strategy would be different, right? And just from my experience, people who are slightly older like to play these, and oftentimes, and they can tell me wrong with data anytime they want, but just at least from a pattern I've seen, it's a lot of like more like women that are more elderly and they have a lot of responsibilities. So they play this as just like a relaxation, therapeutic kind of thing. Like like a solitaire.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy because the gameplay doesn't change at all. Then I would say, look, if you're trying to increase retention, hit rewind, really think through the Octalysis framework and how you can get, because I'm getting bored. I'm like, okay, I get it. And I love games. Trust me, I love games. I love escape rooms, all that stuff. But I feel like it's repetitive to me. There's no surprise. And maybe even that mystery thing, that mystery ball, maybe bring it in sooner. Like be on level 5. You can bring that up a little bit sooner and bring more mystery into this, make it a little bit more complicated for me. So I don't know. What do you think, you guys? Last part of thoughts for this one, for this app?
No, makes sense.
All right. All right, guys. Well, you guys, I appreciate everything you're for the no state. It is the Octalysis. Doing there.
Octalysis.
Octalysis. Damn it. Okay.
Octalysis
group. What kind of crappy hostess are you, Steve? Octalysisgroup.com. And then if you checked out Yukai's book, you can go to yukaichou.com. All these are linked up in your favorite podcast app and YouTube video. I just bought this book. Go check it out too. I bought the Audible version of it. But Yukai, after you broke it down, I really want to buy the physical book too. And I'm like, I'll let you know if the audiobook lives up to the physical stuff that you talked about too, and like finding new things.
It's a visual framework, so having a physical, like I think so too. A book you can see makes a lot of sense actually. But either way, I have lots of fans who became fans through the Audible version, so it works somehow. I don't know how, but in their heads, I guess they see the Acorn drives.
I know you're friends with Nir, who wrote Hooked. I actually found the audiobook version of that book more enjoyable to me. I don't know, when I was reading it, I was like, I don't get this. I have no idea what he's talking about. And then I listened to it and I was like, I get it now. I get it. Like, it's crazy. All right. So all that is linked up in your favorite YouTube podcast description as well. Yukai, thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
All right. And then we have a guest because this guy's like, come on, I need help. All right. I have an app. It doesn't have a subscription. I want to market it. I'll set it all up and sell the app. Okay. If I have an app and doing closed testing, will it charge? I don't think so, because the keyword is testing. I know on iOS, you can't charge anybody on test flight. So I don't think it will. But if you're talking about Google, I have no idea either. All right. Cool. Ben had an app that he's launching too. All right. I answered your question. Sorry, my friend. Come earlier. All right, Satai, come earlier. All right, next week, we're going to talk to somebody I talked to when he was just like 13 years old, I believe, Yukai. So years ago, he's gone on to sell multiple apps to Meta, to Facebook, and he built his newest app, Social AI. So along the same lines as Ethan with the parallel live stuff that he built. So I'm really fascinated by this social AI space, but Michael Sayman's going to be on next week. So, and for those outside of the US, we're going back an hour. So really play around with your times and make sure you hit that subscribe and that notification bell so you know exactly when we go live, because we're going to start at 8 a.m. Well, technically, it's still 9 a.m. So we're going back an hour in the US. Yukai, thank you so much for coming on and doing this.
Thank you. Enjoy your day.
Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.